And now, breaking Bridget! Malcolm Gladwell, author of The Tipping Point and Blink, has admitted that he was cowed into saying that men should compete in women's sports.
I'm ashamed of my performance at that panel because I share your position 100%, and I was cowed. The idea of saying anything on this issue, I was, I believe in retrospect, in a dishonest way. I was objective in a dishonest way.
What an absolute bitch. I get it. People are very excited. People like Jennifer Say and Peter Boghossian, people I respect, they're like, we need to applaud them. If somebody admits that they make a mistake, we should allow people grace and allow them to come back in and expand our tent. And we should stand up and give them a standing ovation for doing the right thing. First of all, he didn't say he made a mistake. He said he was cowed, which means he was a coward. So he's admitting to being a coward, and he's not even saying, and I won't do that again in the future. He's saying he was bullied into this, and that leaves the door open for him to do it in the future. Gladwell isn't taking any responsibility for this. He's saying he was bullied into this position. Therefore, he's a victim. And I'm sorry, but you don't get to play the victim when you allowed other people to be victimized for daring to speak up.
That's fair.
People lost their jobs, lost their livelihoods, they lost friends, they lost personal reputation. You allowed women with lesser means to be bullied by trans activists and society at large. You also allowed women to get their asses kicked in sports by men while you just sat there.
I'm gonna roll up the other women here and I'm gonna smoke them.
You allowed detransitioners to suffer silently while they tried to speak out against this. You allowed kids to continue going through all of these transitions that are not more and more coming out that they're not medically sound while you just sat there because you were cowed by the mean media and some of your friends. And I'm not downplaying how insane trans activists have been. They are definitely terrifying. We just covered what happens in the UK. They have taken over institutions. I'm not denying any of that. We know this. We've covered this extensively on this show. But he hasn't given any kind of shout out to the people who were brave enough to say this all along. He hasn't given them any credit. He hasn't apologized to them for letting them down. Look, I give him credit for saying he was ashamed of the way he behaved. This is good. I'm someone in recovery. I've had to do a lot of amends in my time and still have to. I will never look down at somebody who's looking at their behavior, saying they're ashamed and trying to change it. But this guy writes books about social behavior, group behavior, and how to influence culture.
You're all individuals. Yes, we're all individuals.
I'm sorry. If only we had an ally with an enormous amount of influence and a huge platform and an ability to write books. Perhaps someone who has studied in great detail and made millions of dollars doing so. Social contagions! I mean, the one guy who really could have stood up and said, hey, I have some expertise in this. I see what's going on. I see it even in myself, but I'm going to be brave. And instead, it's like, oh, sorry, now that this is an okay thing to say, now that you're not going to get kicked off the New York Times bestseller list for daring to utter it, now you can say it. Sorry, I let all those Jews be murdered. I was bullied by the Nazis. Like, everyone thinks they're going to be the person that hides a Jew in their attic. And my experience of the last 10 years is that most people will be the guards at Auschwitz.
Yeah.
And this is something Dr. Drew said and Jordan Peterson and all those whack jobs.
You have to know that you're
A monster, and that you're capable of terrible things.
And now you're hearing it from me, another whack job. But it is true. In general, people want to be nice and they want to go along and they don't want to rock the boat and they don't like confrontation. Can you guys give Malcolm Gladwell some applause for admitting that he was scared a grown man with multi-millions of dollars. I'm fine with him coming out, but we don't need to fucking throw the guy a party. He's not a toddler who like did something wrong and then took responsibility. This is a grown man who's now blaming outside influences for him not having the balls to stand up and say a blatantly obvious truth. Also, how am I supposed to trust you about anything else in the future that you are observing? Because now I know that if that thing you're observing comes in conflict with your desire to remain in the good graces of your peer group, or because you're scared of whatever the ramifications might be for you calling out something that's blatantly true, why do I think that you're not going to choose cowardice again? More than likely you will.
Are you a pacifist?
No, sir, I'm not a pacifist, sir. I'm a coward.
Yeah. I would like to think maybe you learned a lesson from this, Malcolm Gladwell, but I am not holding my fucking breath. He trafficked in a lot of the woke stuff, too. He went after Matt Taibbi and tried to imply that he was racist in a panel with Matt Taibbi. This guy has been on the wrong side of so many issues. I just don't really trust his judgment. And maybe that's what getting older is. Maybe it is just realizing that Malcolm Gladwell doesn't know what he's talking about.
I have no idea what's going on.
And he's a weaselly little coward. No, I get it. I get why people were scared. But like, you know who else was scared? Women with no platform, moms who got kicked out of their knitting groups. The consequences for somebody in his position to not say anything were so cascading. It affected the entire culture, and it slowed this whole transition, pun intended, see what I did there, down.
Right.
It slowed the pendulum down because people like him who were experts on this just sat there and did nothing.
Right. The women who were scared were the ones who were put in prison with men.
Or got their butt kicked in the fucking Olympics. And it's important that people are speaking up and taking some kind of, it's not, I can't even say that he's taking accountability. He said, I was cowed and I'm ashamed. So it's like, I'm a victim and feel bad for me. It's still not even really the kind of taking that like real hard look at how you failed.
Right.
So many people.
It's like an unapology.
It is. It's like, I'm sorry I made you feel that way.
I'm sorry about how badly I reacted to your many errors. That's as good as it's going to get, isn't it? Pretty much.
I never heard from my editor again after I called him out for their ridiculous men can have abortions editor's note. I lost work. I was probably silently kicked off of Playboy for being a TERF. Do you know how much TERFs suffered over the last decade? True repercussions, financial, social, otherwise. And now you're like, oh, I was ashamed. I was cowed. They bullied me. I'm like, get your shit together. You're a fucking grown man. You let little girls come forward as detransitioners, young women, and take on the entire fucking mob before you said something 10 years later. It's you should be ashamed. You should be embarrassed.
How dare you?